Hola amores, welcome back to my channel. It is Christina, tu vecina favorita que maquilla, and I am back with another video. And I first wanted to say thank you to my new subscribers. I've noticed I've steadily been gaining, a few subscribers every few days, so thank you. Whether you're here for the makeup or here for my chatty videos, it is much appreciated. I'm glad you liked my content enough to subscribe, and I hope that you keep enjoying the videos that I put out. So for today, I wanted to talk about why representation matters. And I chose to speak on this because of an article that I stumbled across the other day, which was talking about representation. And it made me think about my oldest daughter as well. So, I figured I'd come on here and make a video about it. So when we talk about representation, this can mean representation in a lot of different areas. It can be the representation of women in certain professions. It can be the representation of darker skinned people in the beauty world, which, now all the brands, they have like 40, 50 shades of concealer and foundation from the lightest of light to the darkest of dark, but they really started putting in work for the darker skinned people, which I think is great. It can be the representation of Indigenous and Black people in Latin American media, or even just the representation of Black people here in America within the many facets of American society. I mean, it can be LGBTQ community. It can be in anything. And I think that it is extremely important. I came across this term called symbolic annihilation, which basically means it is the idea that if you don't see people that look like you in the media that you consume, that it makes you believe that you must somehow be unimportant. And it makes you question, does society even value me as a person? So this made me think like, wow, sorry guys, if I sound a little congested, it's because I kind of got sick over the weekend. But it made me think like, you know what? Sometimes people say, social media, what you see online, it's all fake, blah, blah, blah. It's not real life. But when you really think about it, even though it may not be real life, it does actually affect how we feel in our real life. And while I was reading that article, I got into another article, which was on a study that was done with children. And as you guys already know, most children programming, Disney and the princesses, they're mainly white. The majority are white. I mean, of course, there's a lot more diversity now, but for the most part, they're historically, they've always been pretty white. And for the most part, they still are mainly white characters. And in this study, they found that TV made white children, specifically white boys, feel very good about themselves, whereas the boys and girls of color did not. So it made me think, like, even as a young child, this idea of representation is so important, not just in the TV that they watch, but even in their toys. And it made me think of my daughter. My oldest daughter, she's 5, and if any of you guys know the cartoon Shimmer and Shine, they're two little genie twins. But Shine is slightly darker than Shimmer. I mean, they're both like tan, but Shine is a little dark enough that she was able to pick up on that. And she has told me, Mommy, like Shine, she has brown skin like me. And of course, at 5 years old, she has no understanding of race or what any of that is. But she understands differences in skin color. To her, well, at least there's two main colors to her. Either you're brown or you're peach. That's basically what she calls like white people, or, lighter skinned people. She says they're peach. Tan to dark skin, you're brown. And I've noticed like there's certain characters that she'll automatically say, oh, they have brown skin like me. Or, Princess Tiana, she has brown skin like me, and she gets so excited about it. So it just makes me think like, wow, even from such a young age, it's like we are innately drawn to people that look like us on TV. You know, it brings us a sense of, I don't know, excitement and joy to see ourselves being represented, you know. And for myself, you know, even here on YouTube, when I find other like Dominican YouTubers, it's always very exciting for me because I don't see a whole lot here on YouTube. So when I do find others, especially others that I can relate to, that, you know, I enjoy their content, you know, I think they're putting out positive messages and, you know, uplifting Dominican people, that is always something very exciting for me. And it's like you don't only want to see yourself represented in general, but you want to see yourself represented in a positive way. And this is something, you know, I hear Black people in America talk about, especially because you see, yeah, Black people get roles in a lot of movies, but a lot of the times, what type of roles are they being cast at? You see Black women always being cast in like degrading type of roles, or the men, they're always either, you know, thugs or, you know, criminals, you know, just negative things. And whether we realize it or not, the media teaches us about ourselves and about other groups of people. Now, whether what the media is teaching us is right or wrong, you never quite know, but a lot of times what they're teaching us is stereotypes. So if you are a person that hasn't really been around another group of people and you're just going based off of what you see in the media, then you're just coming up with a wrong perception of that group of people. For example, and this is something, you know, I've mentioned before, a lot of the times Dominicans, you know, we are portrayed as either being racist, especially towards Haitian people, or, you know, we're portrayed as being in denial about our Black roots, not wanting to accept our Black roots and stuff like that. And for any typical person that doesn't really know Dominican people like that, they would believe it to be true. Like, actually, just maybe a week or two ago, I had commented on another YouTuber's video, and what was it about? I forget what the comment was about, but I mentioned in there that I'm Dominican, and somebody responded to me like, hey, I heard Dominicans are racist. And this person, she wasn't, I didn't take it as she was trying to be mean or bashy. Like, she was genuinely commenting this and like asking me about it. And so I replied. But it's like, see, I mean, she probably heard this or saw this somewhere on social media, as many people have, and she believed that it could possibly be true. So just imagine, again, going back to the way, you know, Black people here in America are portrayed in the media and in the movies and a lot of TV shows. If you didn't come up around Black people, or you haven't been exposed to diverse groups of Black people, you're going to believe that they're all this way. And so that is why it's, I think, so important, especially for them, you know, to see shows in which they're portraying, one, like family units, okay, not the typical single parent household, you know, shows in which they're portraying the whole family, you know, in which the parents have, you know, good professions, in which the kids are in school. And, you know, and going back to the kids, I think it's especially important for them. And this is not just Black kids, but any children from any ethnic group, that they see themselves, that they see, you know, older kids or even adults from their group that are doing good things, you know, that have good jobs, that are in school, that are being educated, so that they also grow up with the, you know, the thought that, hey, I can do this too. And, you know, I think it's especially cool, you know, that there are now more ethnic, you know, superheroes even. And I like Black Panther, for example. I know that has been around for a very, very long time. But the movie itself, you know, it just came out not that long ago. And, you know, you can only imagine how, you know, exciting that must have been for little Black boys to see this, you know, badass, you know, superhero that was Black in a movie full of Black people. Even like the new animated Spider-Man, what's his name? Miles Morales, he's supposed to be half black and half Puerto Rican. So right there, you have two groups of kids that have this, figure they can look up to. And, I think that's awesome. And then, of course, all these like girl superheroes and stuff like that, which, I definitely believe it's important for little girls to see themselves in roles that are not the typical, just domestic type of roles. Like they can be, superheroes too, and, fight crime and do good and all that type of stuff. Like I think it's so important that young kids, especially because they are still so impressionable, that they see themselves being represented and being able to do like anything basically. Like if you want to be a princess and you're dark skinned, you can be a princess too, which is why I also think it was so important for like Princess Tiana, what that did for little black girls or just dark skinned girls, regardless of culture, and like with my daughter, and again, it's not just with like what they see on TV, but even with their toys, I've always made it a point to buy her, black Barbies or tan, the Latina Barbies and stuff like that for her and her sister. And of course, they have the white blonde dolls and Barbies too, but I've always made sure that they have, a diverse group of dolls and Barbies, dolls where they can look at it and see themselves. I think that's so important. And why I really appreciate that the cartoon Doc McStuffins too, because not only is she a little black girl, but she's a doctor, So again, instilling into children from a very young age that they don't have to be limited, to the typical stereotypes that, their group of people is usually portrayed as. Like they have the capability to do anything. And this reminds me for those of you who know who the actress Gina Rodriguez is, she did the series Jane the Virgin. She's the actress, and she put out a tweet, I think it was last year, saying Marvel and DC are killing it in inclusion, but where are the Latinos? And a lot of people side-eyed her after that comment because it's like she completely overlooked the fact that there have been certain Latinos in these movies. They're just not your typical European or mestizo Latinas. Like Zoe Saldana, for example, Tessa Thompson, Zoe's a Latina, but because she doesn't look like, your typical Latina is always portrayed in the media, because she is a black Latina, she was overlooked. And that goes back to, why in Latin American media especially, but or even just a portrayal of Hispanics in American media, why there also needs to be this inclusion of, the darker black Hispanics as well, because we don't always see it ourselves on the media. And when we do, they don't always even get recognized. So I definitely think it's important for Hollywood to start also casting, Hispanic actors and actresses besides J-Lo that, encompasses all of what Hispanics are, not just the European, but like the more indigenous looking Hispanics, because they are also very much underrepresented. Or when they are represented, like especially in like novelas and stuff, they're always shown as like low class people. They're always shown as the help, things like that, poor, and or even the way Black Hispanics are represented, which is kind of similar, or the Black Hispanic women, they're portrayed as witches, and stuff like that, which I think we need to migrate away from that. So like for for young girls, for women, there are certain roles within society that we've typically or traditionally always been placed in. And obviously we've come a long way. We're no longer in the days when women pretty much stayed just at home and raised kids. Women now, especially here in America, they're very career driven, very goal driven, very independent. That's great. But even within like the professional field, I feel like there's certain professions that are it's more so expected for women to go into, and others that are still very dominated by men. And so I think that's why you also see a push for there to be more inclusion of females in like some of the more, scientific fields and stuff like that. And, I think that is also great. And I think women that are in those fields, it's important to see them being celebrated so that young girls see this too and see that, they can join these professions as well, even if they are dominated by men. They should be granted the opportunity to get into these fields as well. Another area in which I feel representation is very important is in politics. Now, I don't, follow politics too much, but for example, here in America, I think representation for minorities is especially important. I do see there are a lot more like Hispanic people in politics now. Of course, there's, a great number of Black people in politics. And, I think it's even important for, there to be more Native Americans in politics, which I have seen there are a few senators from certain states that are, Native American. And that's one group of people that I feel they're always kind of shut out. You never really hear too much people talk about them. And I think that they definitely deserve a lot of representation either, because if you don't have anyone in the political arena that knows your interests and the plight of your people and that understands, how are your needs ever going to get met? If you have the same people constantly in power, and if they're the majority, who's going to hear you out? Who's going to care enough to put laws or policies in place that are going to benefit you and your community, So that is another reason why I feel representation, like in the political sense, is also very important. At the end of the day, I feel like, the way we see ourselves represented, in the media, it can have an effect on your self-esteem. And, whether people want to admit it or not, we all do need, to a certain extent, some form of external validation. Yes, we should have our self-esteem, which comes from within, and we should all believe that we should believe in our capabilities. We should believe, especially, women, that we are beautiful regardless of what our hair looks like, regardless of our skin tone, things like that. I believe that kids, regardless of, their background, they should always believe that the possibilities are endless for them. But it makes it a whole lot easier to also believe these things when you see yourself being portrayed in these positive ways in the media. And that's when you see a lot of these movements come about. You see spaces being created in which, certain attributes or traits about ourselves are being celebrated, like, the natural hair movement. That is a movement in which women with type 4 hair are being celebrated and represented. The Afro-Latino movement is a movement in which Black, darker skin Hispanics are being represented and celebrated. Those type of things. I think, again, it's all very important. I think here in the U.S. especially, because there are so many different groups here, not just ethnic groups, racial groups, but just a lot of different, societal groups that we may belong to. Again, the U.S. is just so diverse. And I think it's important that, all people that live here, that come here, that are raised here, that they're able to see themselves represented. Because, the U.S. is truly a melting pot of so many different types of people. And, different religions. There's everything here. So, when you have so many different people living in one country, so many different interests, so many things that people care about, I do think it's important that these people can see themselves being represented, seeing their needs being taken care of, seeing themselves being celebrated, So, yeah, that is my 2 cents on the subject of representation. Let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.